Greetings to you in the name of Yawasha, the Hashwar Hebrew name for Jesus. I'm Michael Hoshaya, and I'm with you today to continue in the series Revelation in Light of Daniel with part 6. Greece, the leopard. As we've learned in the previous videos, we are transitioning from Nebuchadnezzar's dream statue into Daniel's visions of chapter 7. We learned that on this statue, which is what you see here, we learned that the head of gold was Babylon and the silver chest of arms was Medo-Persia, and we have learned that the waist and belly of brass is Greece, and then the legs of iron were Rome. And what we are learning now is that Babylon in Daniel's visions was the lion with wings, and that Medo-Persia was the bear with 3 ribs in its mouth, which we discussed the 4 major kings that came from Persia during their reign. And today we are learning about Greece and how it is translated into the 4-headed leopard with wings in Daniel's vision. So before we go into this, I was speaking with a dear friend of mine. I was telling them that, look, if you haven't taken notes, which I've been suggesting all along, now is the time to start taking notes. And this is very important because things are about to get very confusing if you don't have it down on paper in front of you. And what I've done is I've offered an example of how to write this stuff down. You can get a piece of paper and follow this method here, or you can come up with your own. Either way, the vital information must be written. And now we're getting into the counting of the heads between all the beasts, because it's going to be very important when we transition over into Revelation chapter 13. So at any rate, as you can see here, we put the gold head of the statue, Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon, Daniel chapter 2, verses 32 through 38, which tells you about the statue. And then it's also translated into the lion of Daniel's vision in chapter 7, verse 4. And this counts as 1 head because the image of Daniel's vision only has 1 head. And as you can see, next, we have the silver chest and arms, the King Cyrus, Medo-Persia, Daniel chapter 2, verse 32 through 39. He's also the bear in Daniel chapter 7, verse 5, and the ram in Daniel chapter 8. This counts as 1 head. The brass belly and thighs was Alexander the Great in Greece. That's found in Daniel chapter 2, verse 32 through 39 as well. He's also known as the leopard in Daniel chapter 7, verse 6, which we will read shortly. And also the goat in Daniel chapter 8. And as we have seen, this goat has, well, that's not a very good picture. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get out of that one right here, and I'm going to give you a good picture. Today we're talking about the leopard with the 4 heads. And as you can see, here we have the 4 heads, and we also have the 4 wings of the fowl. But hey, we haven't read that verse to freshen us up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and go to the Bible in Daniel chapter 7, and we're going to read verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. This is where Daniel saw the leopard, the image that we just looked at, and it had 4 heads. So you got to ask yourself, why did this leopard have 4 heads? Well, actually, what you're seeing here is the final stages of what Alexander the Great's kingdom would become. But let's go find out how that occurred. We're going to go back to our Bible, and we're going to go to Daniel chapter 8, and then we're going to begin reading in verse 8, where the goat has come up against the ram. It says, therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. On this goat, in the original start of the vision, Daniel saw this goat flying across the earth, hovering above it and never touching the ground. And it had this really huge, strong, great horn in the middle of its forehead. And it used this horn to batter and beat down the Persian ram. Well, in history, which we're about to discuss a little bit, we're going to find out that Alexander did indeed defeat the army of the Persians. At the time, it was the greatest army the world had ever seen. The Persian king Darius III. He amassed millions. And unfortunately, they were slaves that were fighting for them. They weren't fighting for freedom. They were fighting because they were told to fight or die. So either way, from the slave's point of view, the slave warrior's point of view, if I fight, I'm going to die. If I don't fight, I'm going to die. So there you have the mentality. However, let's continue on. It says, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heavens. This is ultimately saying that the great horn in the goat, on the goat's forehead, was broken. Now, Alexander the Great, let me go ahead and get you an image up of him. Alexander the Great, he was, his father was King Philip II, who was ultimately called a barbarian because he did many, many tactics and very ruthless individual and would kill people who opposed him without fail, and he would laugh at them. And at any rate, he was considered at some point to be losing his mind, whatnot. But however, it took King Philip II 25 years to conquer what little bit of land he could into the Persians. At this time, no Greek had defeated the Persians, and there were a couple centuries there where the Persians were constantly battering against Greece. But at the time, Greece was not a unified nation as we know it today. It was nothing but sheep herders and farmers and fishing villages who were not united one with the other, such as Thebes, Athens, Sparta, Thrace, Macedon. All of these places were not united. And King Philip II was trying to unite this. Now, he battled all the way down to Egypt, done a lot of great things, but nobody really united up under him. So, lo and behold, it is believed that Persian gold from Darius III was given to one of Alexander's friends to assassinate King Philip II, Alexander's father. So this, along with the history of the Persians constantly battering against Greece, and the killing of his father, would drive Alexander to a phobia and an obsession to defeat the Persian Empire and do what no Greek had ever done. And this is what he did. You'll see here in front of you on the right, and the picture here is the actual bust of Alexander the Great. This image here is an AI generated image to show you the possibility of what he looked like according to records and documents. This young man right here conquered more of Persia, the Persian Empire, than any Greek before him in 10 years. 10 years. That seems like a long time, my brothers and sisters, but it's really not, especially when we look at the land that had to be conquered in order for this empire to grow. We'll choose this is fine. This is the Persian Empire before Alexander the Great. Now, what we need to learn here is that Alexander came from this area right here. All of this was owned by the Persians. So Alexander had to leave from this point here and come all the way down through here, all the way back. All of this empire he conquered in 10 years. He didn't have any airplanes to do it with. He didn't have any major ships to move tanks and armor and all of this to this area. No, he did it on foot and chariots. He used the Athenian fleet of ships to get across the waters, but they abandoned him shortly into the campaign. And his generals, which were Lysimachus, Ptolemy, Cassander, and Seleucus, and there was one even called Antigonus, but he didn't last very long. They all said, hey, let's just go back, regroup, and we'll come in again. Alexander said no. And ultimately, his strategy and knowledge of the warriors of Persia being slaves, he counted on that. And it worked. He made Darius III run away in battle. If you actually go and watch the movie Alexander, you will see what happened. And it was really a great defeat for Darius III, ultimately the final defeat before his death. However, in 10 years, our Alexander the Great conquered the empire you see here before you. And with that, I believe this is, nope, that's the Babylonian Empire. And there it is. This is Alexander the Great's empire right here. You may view that, and how you can find this image by going onto Google and searching Alexander the Great Empire, and it will show you everything that he did. We actually have one where he shows his traversing through here, and you'll notice that during his campaign, he came through here and worked back and forth. He came down into Egypt down here, and Alexandria and so forth, and he was proclaimed Pharaoh down there. As a matter of fact, they welcomed him with open arms. Granted, of course, rebellion would have been crushed. However, the people did not view him in that nature as an enemy that they would have to bow down to because he defeated them. They actually greeted him. And the same happened in the Persian Empire right here and the battle over here. Nonetheless, let's continue on. We learned that Alexander the Great, I'm sorry, let me get rid of that pen. Alexander the Great, this young gentleman right here, conquered the Persian Empire in less than half the time that it took his father to defeat not even half of it. But what was more interesting is Alexander united all of Greece. He united Athens with Sparta. He united Thebes with Thrace, Macedonia with everyone, and all of these people brought their armies forward and said, we're sick of the Persians, go get rid of them. And this young gentleman did. However, he was to die in 321 BC, I believe it was, in Babylon from a mysterious illness. The belief of the time was if you chose glory before you were born, then you would have a short life. And if you did not choose glory, you would have a long life. However, Alexander the Great did not have a very long life. He died very young. I have my own personal theories as to why, because the Greek culture was a homosexual one and viewed women as the far lessers. Nonetheless, we just read in the book of Daniel, chapter 8, where the big horn, the great horn, Alexander the Great, broke. This is when he died in 321 BC. And it says that 4 notable horns grew in its place. And we just saw that we have learned that there were generals that came up to break apart the empire because Alexander did not have an heir. He married one of the daughters of Darius III, but unfortunately the Greek culture the homosexuality of it played a major role in Alexander's not having an heir. But even this was permitted because for his not having an heir, because the empire would have to be broken up into 4 parts. And let's see, that is not the image that I was looking for. Here it is right here. This image right here shows Alexander the Great's empire broken up into 4 pieces. The first one being under Cassander, which, let me get my pen, is here. And then the next being Lysimachus, which is here. Another one, Ptolemy, here. And the final one, the Seleucid Empire, here. And let me introduce you to these gentlemen here. It's this rough-looking gentleman right here. His name is Cassander. He was the one who was put into power by both, I believe it was Ptolemy and Lysimachus, over Thrace and such. And unfortunately for him, he was later killed also, and his empire was absorbed. This gentleman here is none other than Ptolemy. Ptolemy, you may remember, he ruled over Egypt. It was under his empire that Cleopatra would come about and marry his, I guess it was his great-grandson or his grandson, something along that nature, by the name of Mark Antony. And this was right at the change of empires from Greece to Rome. And it would ultimately be Cleopatra who would commit suicide and thereby pretty much hand the kingdom, the Ptolemaic Empire, over to Rome. The next one, of course, there is Alexander the Great. A wonderful image of him. This gentleman right here is none other than Seleucus. Pay attention to this guy because it's his empire that we're going to learn about our first actions of an Antichrist. It was out of this guy's empire that occurred. And this one here is none other than Lysimachus. And this gentleman, he died of, unfortunately, the dropsy, what they call the dropsy. I'm not really sure what that is. You can look that up if you like. He died from the dropsy. So here it is that we have the 4 generals who busted up the empire after Alexander died in 321 BC. This guy, Lysimachus, and then Seleucus, and Ptolemy, and Cassander, they all had that wonderful empire right here. This is now a 4-part empire, which is what we just read about in Daniel chapter 8. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. Now, after Cassander was killed and Lysimachus died of the disease, that left the generals Ptolemy and Seleucus. And these are the 4 horns. However, you will read in Daniel chapter 11 about the king of the south and the king of the north. It is believed by most theologians across the world that the king of the south was none other than Ptolemy's empire, and the king of the north was none other than Seleucus' empire. And so a little side note here, Cleopatra was not Egyptian. She was born of a family that migrated there from Syria. Isn't that interesting? However, she was a great queen. She did many things for her children that only a strong woman could do. So without any further ado, I'm not going to keep you very long today. Just know that you should have taken notes, such as these here. The gold head, Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. Daniel chapter 2, lion, and Daniel's vision, chapter 7, verse 4, this equals 1 head. This is very important. Silver chest and arms is none other than Cyrus Medo-Persia. Also found out about Nebuchadnezzar's dream statue in chapter 2 of Daniel. He's also the bear with 3 ribs in his mouth, which would be 3 successor kings. found in Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. And he was also the ram. The empire was the ram in Daniel chapter 8, which we just read about, where our empire of Alexander the Great as the goat defeated. And then the horn broke, and four notable horns came up, and that was our generals, which we just talked about here: Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. Ptolemy was considered a great individual. As a matter of fact, it was under his rule that the command was given for the Jewish scholars in his area of Egypt and so forth, that they would write the old Hebrew covenant in Greek so he could understand it under the penalty of death if they did not agree with each other. And so be it, we came to know and have what is known as the Septuagint, or the LXX 70. And it is a wonderful resource to use when doing studies. I recommend that you get you a PDF of it, or if you can find an app with the Septuagint. It is a wonderful, great study tool, along with the Strongs. Of course, the Bible being the first and foremost. So there you have it, a simple video today. We have learned about Alexander the Great, none other than this gentleman right here. And we also learned about the empires, and we learned of his four generals that broke it up: Cassander, Ptolemy, oh, there's Alexander again, Seleucus, and Lysimachus. These were the four men that broke the empire up and would unfortunately die. But out of one of them is what stages for our supplement video to Greece the Leopard, which will be entitled Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the Little Horn. He's our first vision and look at what an Antichrist does. Until then, thank you for joining me. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good day.